transition underway with the Justice Administration. Have you, as the incoming president of the Senate, who has a big role in determining the agenda, have you met with the Justice people? Are you meeting with them? Are you getting on the same page here?
Yes, I met with them towards the end of last week, and we're meeting with Governor-elect Justice. And we met for probably 3 hours.
You met then? You met with Justice then, or you're meeting again with Justice?
No, I did last week.
Okay.
I think it was on Thursday or Friday, and then we're meeting today with his transition team. So we're working, closely with them. We're anxious to work with them. I know that you've had some guests on your show that are worried about the partisanship, or they bring up the issue of partisanship, and it's like, why even go in that direction? I mean, I think it's ridiculous to even start out talking about it. We have no agenda that is based around partisan politics. We want to move this state forward. This is our chance. This is our moment to move this state forward. And, dang on, we are absolutely intent on doing that.
So when you talk to Justice, I mean, are you guys on the, but okay, so everybody would agree, say, we want to move the state forward. Everybody agrees on that. But when you talk about how to do it, and if you got down into specifics with Justice, do you have agreement there, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, I mean, when you look at what he said during the campaign, and I think he's an honorable person, I believe his words, that he said during the campaign, his pledge was that we can balance this state budget with no new taxes. And I'm embracing that philosophy, and I think he's said it. He's actually reiterated it after the campaign. We've talked about it. He is, he's ran a lot of businesses, and so he understands how to make a balance sheet work. And we're looking forward to his proposals on how to do that, and we're staying ready, willing, and able to help him in every way to do this.
Well, and he did say in the campaign that people have been taxed enough. He also said we've cut too much, but we cut enough. But I think he also talked about a top-down review of government. So, Mitch, we're going to come back and keep coming back to this same storyline, and that is the projection is a shortfall of $400 million in the next budget year. So if you're not going to raise taxes, then how do you do it? Do you have any sense from him, or do you have a sense on how you do it?
Well, I think one of the themes that we need to look at is and you hear it over and over and over, but I'll just give you an example of how we can run government more efficiently. And we talk about the fleet management. There's been a lot of stories written about we don't even know in this state government after, so many years of mismanagement, how many vehicles are licensed to the people of, that work for state government. And what I would like to say to you, and I think you'd agree, is if this thing were sent in the private sector, if Enterprise or one of the other private industries were managing that, they'd know tonight. If you hit a button and said, I want to know how many cars we have and how many miles are on it, they'd know tonight.
Yeah, they would, yeah.
It's a private sector mentality, and it would be done more efficiently. And I think the things that we can look at in state government, that's just an example, but it's proliferated throughout our entire government, and we can manage this more effectively and better for the people of West Virginia. And I think Governor-elect Justice has that same sentiment.
Mitch Carmichael's with us. He's the incoming Senate President, Republican, Jackson County. Republicans talk a lot. You've talked a lot about one way to help the economy is reduce regulations. Do you have a specific bill or bills that address what you all think is over-regulation? Can you give us any idea of what some of those or any of those might be?
Yeah, and I'll give you some perspective on that also. We last year did away with 10% of our rules and regulations that we've had, within the laws of West Virginia, these rules and regulations. So there's 10% that we did just last year. We had a couple of bills that didn't make it across the finish line last year that did away with additional rules and regulations. And Hoppy, we want reasonable regulation. There's nobody that wants to, have a wild, wild, wild west where you just tear up the environment and everything else. But these onerous, burdensome regulations that many entities have ranked West Virginia as the most overregulated, burdensome scheme in America. And those things have cost. Those regulations have cost, and they cost jobs and revenue for our state. And so we have specific bills, and we'll be meeting with the governor's people this afternoon talking about those regulatory reform bills. And let me just, to highlight the things that we've done here in West Virginia. We've put this state on a path after just 2 years of, Republican control of the legislature. We've put ourselves in a position to grow. Once we get this boot off our neck of a national administration where they've just had us kind of strangled from a fossil fuel industry perspective, we're going to prosper. We've put the things in place. We've done regulatory reform, tax reform, civil justice reform, which is a huge component of our agenda. These are then labor law reform. So those are the things we have in place that the people of West Virginia can be optimistic. I sense it. I don't know whether you do or not, but talking with people throughout the state, there is a sense that we're moving in the right direction and people are ready to make these big investments in our state.
The legislature has, under Republican control, passed significant legal reforms, I think at least a dozen of them. Now, I'm told there are more legal reforms on the horizon. Are you going to go deeper on that and what still needs to be done? Because you have the trial attorneys and the trial bar already saying, the Association for Justice saying, my gosh, you've gone far enough, if not too far. Are you going to go farther?
Yes, we're going to go further, and it's because we're still out of step with many of our surrounding states and the states throughout the nation. And does it surprise you? Does it really surprise you that the trial lawyers, the personal injury trial lawyers, think we've gone too far? That doesn't surprise me.
Well, they would say, and I'll have them on. I've had them on before. I'll have them on again. They would say, we are trying to protect the right of an individual to access the courts when he or she has been wronged, and you're infringing on that. But that's what the argument that they would make. So, and we'll make.
And you're right. That's the argument they'll make. That's the argument they've been making. And West Virginia was ranked as the #1 judicial hellhole in America every year that the rankings have been put forth every year. Now we're off the list. We are off the list, and we have more to do to ensure that, we want to protect the legitimate rights of people to air their grievances in court. But we don't want to run every business out of state and every employer out of state such that we don't have any jobs, which is what has happened in West Virginia. So we're going to continue an aggressive, move towards a fair, equitable, balanced court system.
Do you think, and incoming Senate President Mitch Carmichael's with us, and the legislature is at times an unwieldy body. There's a lot of people in there who have varied interests, even when they're from the same party. You and also the House, Speaker of the House, Tim Armstead, have talked a lot about the economic issues, the jobs issue, and all things related to that. But you know how the legislature is. And do you expect there will be any sort of social type issues that come up, anything related to abortion, anything related to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, anything like that conservatives or religious conservatives want and promise their constituents they would take up if they went to Charleston, that you will deal with, or will you stop that and say, we're not fooling with that, we're worried about jobs and the economy?
Well, to the extent I have the authority to stop it, I want us to focus on jobs and the economy. Now, there are social issues that people care deeply about, but for me, we have 60 days, and we're in this state that has the highest unemployment in the nation, the greatest percentage of people on welfare, the highest illiteracy rate, the highest computer illiteracy rate. We have all these problems that are related to lack of jobs. And for us to spend time on issues that don't solve problems, I think it's a sin, really, and it's wrong for the people of West Virginia to expect us to come down here and argue about social issues when we're dying without jobs and opportunity and hope in our state. So we're going, I hope, to focus on jobs and opportunity. And every day we come to work here, we ought to have our hair on fire and be excited about creating jobs and opportunity. And if a bill doesn't create a job or have an opportunity to allow the private sector to create jobs, we ought to say, hey, look, we don't have time to deal with this.
Senate, currently the majority leader, soon to be the Senate president, when you go in session on, the 11th for a couple hours?
We go in session on the 11th, and then we'll take a break to give the incoming governor time to put together his cabinet and positions and budgets and all those kind of things.
Yeah, and then come back in February. Are you surprised there aren't more key positions that have been named yet by the new governor?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I think he needs to take thorough deliberation on who he wants from his cabinet positions and so forth. And these are big decisions. The appointments that he's made have been very good.
You like those so far?
Yeah, I really do. I think he's done a good job in that regard. And like I say, his campaign pledges and promises are aligned with ours. To move the state in a new direction without new taxes, because. I think he's putting these people in place that reflect that.
Mitch Carmichael, the incoming Senate President. Mitch, good to talk to you. Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, Hoppy, thank you. Look forward to working with you.